Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Season 2, Episode 8, The Other Side. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So the episode begins with Hercules stumbling upon Demeter and Persephone. Persephone's frolicking in the fields and talking to a swineherd while Demeter is basically coming over to scold her to not talk to strangers and being a little bit overprotective when Hades cracks open the earth and creates a portal in a cliff face and comes out in his chariot to kidnap Persephone and take her down to the underworld. And Demeter tells Hercules that he needs to go and get her because, he's been to the underworld before and made it back, so he can do the same this time. Unfortunately, he at this point says, "No, you're God. I don't like the gods. I'm not helping you," and walks away. Unfortunately, Demeter then has an emotional meltdown and decides to freeze the world, um, which then, after meeting a poor farmer and his family, makes Hercules decide that he does need to actually help Demeter, not for her, but because she is literally killing humanity by preventing the harvest, preventing farm animals from being alive, etc., etc. So he basically makes a deal with her. I'll go get Persephone, and then you set nature back on course and revitalize the harvest so that humanity stops suffering for this. And she agrees and sends him down to the underworld. However, once he's in the underworld, he meets Chiron, who is, of course, the ferryman, helps him across the water, the river. I can't, River Styx, I think is what it's called. I can't remember. I don't think they name it in here. Either way, he crosses the ferry, tells Chiron to put it on his tab when he doesn't pay him, and promises him a pork recipe because two of the swineherd's pigs end up in the underworld, and one of them happened to be captured by Chiron, and so Hercules promises him a good recipe to use when cooking it, as he then enters the underworld and he starts in the Elysian Fields, where he manages to find his family and reunite with them, and basically gets to spend some time there with them. Meanwhile, in his residence in the underworld, Hades and Persephone, it is revealed that Persephone actually likes Hades. She is upset at him for kidnapping her because her mom's sensitive to these types of things, but Hades was apparently at his wit's end because the mom won't listen about how her daughter feels, and so they end up, having a moment, and then Hercules and his wife decide to get busy because he didn't eat dinner, because if he eats in the underworld, he won't be able to return back to the land of the living. And Hades decides to bring up a portal mirror thing and watch them, which leads to him and Persephone then becoming intimate. Anyways, after that, Persephone goes and visits Hercules with his family and basically is like, I actually like this guy. I'm not sure I want to leave. And Hercules is like, nope, your mom's killing people. You gotta leave. And she's like, oh, well, now that I know he's killing people, I think maybe I should leave. And then while he's going to get the pig, because she tells him that the pig is like family to the swineherd, and so she wants to bring the pigs back to him. He's chasing the pig, and then he ends up being transported into Tartarus, which is obviously the fields where you are punished. And some of the people being punished are eternally filling a well that will not fill. Another one is being tickled, which I think is because this is for a family show. They won't show actual torture, so he's just being tickled. Well, he's tied onto a grate, and then another guy is chained to a tree with an apple just out of reach, which Hercules then decides to feed him. Hercules then goes to Hades' residence through the Fields of Punishment, or Tartarus, and opens his gate faces the Cerberus, but they have an understanding from the last time he was in the underworld, so they don't end up fighting. And Hercules then goes into the bedroom, finds Persephone in bed, basically tells her, get dressed, we need to leave. Then Hades' goons come and try to fight him. They fail. Then Hades comes and fights him, and they basically fight until Persephone says, like, this is enough. No way this can't continue. And then Hercules and Persephone once again end up with his family, where Hercules says goodbye to them and informs them that they are dead because they didn't know that before. And his wife basically is very understanding and is like, you know what? You need to go. And even though Hades offered that in exchange for Persephone staying, he would let Hercules' family leave with him, Hercules gives that up because he understands that the greater humanity comes first and he needs to get Persephone to Demeter. However, while they're having this heartfelt conversation about how, one day he will be with them again, when he dies, um, he'll rejoin them in the underworld. Persephone decides to eat half of an apple or half of a fruit. I think it's an apple. Then, he takes her. Hades tries to stop them, opens like a chasm at the edge of the underworld, even shapeshifts into Daenerys to basically yell at Hercules to let her come too. She changed her mind, but he steadfastly refuses to look back because another rule is, of course, if you look back, then you are stuck in the underworld forever. And he manages to get Persephone to the other side where Demeter is waiting. And then Demeter and Hades start arguing because she ate half the fruit, so per the rules, she can't leave. And Demeter is like, I'm taking her anyways. She's my child. And Hercules managed to get her out without looking back. So therefore, she is allowed to leave with him. And after going back and forth, Hercules basically shuts them up and says, it's not about you. It's about Persephone. Let Persephone decide what she wants. And she ultimately, because she does love Hades in this version, and obviously loves her mother and needs nature to go back on course, she basically says that she wants both. She wants Hades and she wants her mother. And then Hercules says, okay, 6 months here, 6 months there. And she says that works for her. And basically the other two just kind of have to deal with it because that's what she wants. And then when they ask who gets her first, she says that her mother has to put everything back in order. So she'll go with her mother first. And then in 6 months, we'll be back. And that is how we get the seasons. And that is everything that happened in this episode. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we will rank the episode first on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. So our single episode supporting character introduction, we had Demeter. She only appears in this episode. Then we have the multi-episode supporting character introductions. And Hades, while he does have, I think, one episode in a different season, he's only in 3 episodes overall within the Hercules series. He has more episodes on Xena, but in Hercules, only the 3. And because it's such a small number of episodes, even though one of them is in a different season, I'm still just counting it as multi-episode supporting character. So we have Hades, Persephone, Charon, Clonus, in Aeson, and Ilia are also introduced, which are Hercules' children. In The Wrong Path, we met his wife, Daenerys, already there, but his children were not shown on screen. This is the first time we're seeing them, at least in the television series. And so that is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. If you're calculating the points. Then we have our multi-season supporting character introduction, and that is Falafel. He is a food stand worker who Hercules meets while he's wandering about before he stumbles upon the Demeter, Hades, Persephone swineherd situation. And he appears in multiple seasons, multiple episodes across multiple seasons, even though he's like such a bit character. Because he appears in so many, he is technically multi-season supporting character introduction, and should be noted that he does not make good food. Hercules actually has to spit it out in front of him, and given what a good guy Hercules is, for him to spit out food in front of you, which is frankly rude, It had to be awful. So, there you go. 3 points. And then we had our multi-season main character development, which of course was Hercules being able to reunite with his family. And that was worth 4 points. And then we had the world building point, which was Cerberus and his introduction, because he's an animal, he's not a character, but worth noting that Cerberus does exist in this version of reality as well. Then we had our negative points. So starting with the negative messaging or behavior, we have kidnapping. Hades decides because he can't get her mom to listen to how he feels about her daughter, decides that he's just going to kidnap her. And honestly, it's nicer than in the actual myth, because in the actual myth, Persephone does not return his feelings, though in this version, because it's family show, she does. So he does kidnap her. That is not good, but at least it's not like as horrifying as the actual myth goes. Um, Obviously, then we have misdirected anger. I have said it many times, but if somebody hurts you and you want to get revenge on the person who hurt you by hurting them, to a certain extent, I'm like, fair. But when you misdirect that anger onto the innocent people that surround that person or literally had nothing to do with it, like in this case, Demeter deciding to take it out on humans who literally had nothing to do with Hades kidnapping her daughter, um, that is bad. That is bad. That is not good behavior. So obviously 2 points gone there. And then we also have the non-consensual voyeurism that happens because Hades decides to spy on Hercules getting it on with his wife. And then that leads to like him getting it on with Persephone. And I'm like, okay, there are voyeurs out there. That is a kink that exists, but it was non-consensual. Hercules was not aware that he was being spied on with his wife, and it's also kind of creepy to watch those types of activities with people who are not aware that they are being watched. That's actually a really big no-no. Big, big, big no-no. So definitely minus 2 points there. And then, last but not least, we do have, and this one may be my own bias and judgment taking part, but the mostly objective ranking is mostly objective because bias and judgment can still apply with deciding what applies. And in this case, I did find that the emotional impact they were going for with the family reunion failed for me. And one of the reasons that it failed is that, first off, if you've only watched the TV show and not the telemovies, um, obviously we don't know his family that well. We saw only his wife in the first episode. This is the first time we're seeing his children, and it is adorable. Their meeting, their reunion, it is cute. He sheds a tear, adorable, and I'm happy for him that he got that opportunity. However, I personally have no attachment to the characters, so seeing them didn't really do anything for me personally, so I didn't feel emotional to it. And so, as an audience member, there was no emotional impact for me there. And then also just from watching the series, we did see in Unchained Heart how he and Xena got it on, and how Xena decided that she was going to go and try to emulate him in making up for her sins by helping people going forward. And the fact is, before she did that, he was offering, her to come back with him, to be with him. He didn't want her to go, and it's like clearly it shows that he can and does have the capacity to move on from his wife and potentially gain a new love interest in the future. So, they tried to make it so sweet. Oh, you'll come back to me one day and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, will he come back to you alone? That's the question. Maybe, maybe not, because he has the capacity. And personally, I do feel like you are capable of loving more than one person within a lifetime. If you make a commitment to be monogamous till death do you part, of course, or divorce in the modern era. But I do think that you can love again if you lose your loved one. you do have that capacity. So again, I don't think that there would be anything wrong with him moving on because his family is deceased. Death did do them part. So he is free to move on if he wants to, if he reaches that point emotionally. And again, in Unchained Heart, we saw that he does have that potential because he did get it on with Xena and then, not want her to leave and offer her the opportunity to stay with him and be with him. So, like I said, like it just didn't hit for me personally. Um, and I also felt like don't make promises you can't keep or you might not keep because, there's still a lot of life to live. He's not that old. So again, it didn't necessarily make an impact for me, but I know that most likely they were trying to make an impact. They wanted there to be an impact. The people who created the show in the moments. And while again, I did find the moments adorable and super cute and sweet, I just didn't feel like an emotional impact from it. And I know that that's what they were aiming for. So again, it failed -3 points. However, we still are at over, let me see here. On the calculator, we've got about 15 points left. Highest score is 10. So this is a 10 out of 10 episode. Which then brings our mostly objective ranking list to in first, The King of Thieves, followed by What's in a Name. This episode will come in third place, The Other Side. It's in third because when more than one episode has the same score, we rank in episode order. Then we have Under the Broken Sky, Outcast, The Mother of All Monsters, Siege at Naxos, and then All That Glitters in eighth. Now my personal ranking for this episode was also ranked pretty high. I did enjoy this episode a great deal. I liked the concept. So, obviously, in the past, when the gods have been involved, it's been, an altar, it's been creepy eyes on screen, it's been weird manifestation monsters. In the case of that one Ares episode, um, when he kind of came back as possessed armor, um, or they possessed people, or they offered weapons and things like that, but they've been more abstract, not as physical, like human people that you could see. And I feel like this is the first episode where we actually see them as like personified as humanoids. Obviously, it's human actors, so they are humans, but I guess in that sense, because they are meant to be gods, they'd be human in like a humanoid form. Um, with Demeter, Persephone, and Hades. And we know in the future we are going to see Ares in person. So I like that they've made that switch now because that is one of the things I did enjoy about these series as a child is seeing like the gods as people. In Xena, the main ones that come to mind are Ares and Aphrodite. Obviously, Hades also recurs a lot more in Xena than he does in Hercules. But either way, I do enjoy that that has now been brought in here. And technically, we did see that with Nemesis, but Nemesis, when she was talking to Hercules, rather than being a goddess herself, sounded more like someone who does the gods' dirty work and delivers justice on behalf of the gods, which, if you were a god, you wouldn't necessarily. Well, maybe she was too, so maybe Nemesis would be the first. But either way, I think this one had like three of them, so it really drove home. And after Nemesis, they did go back to kind of the obscure stuff. Um, I did enjoy Hades' entrance with the chariot. I think they did a nice effect there with, splitting the earth, creating a portal in the cliff face, a wicked chariot coming out with the horses, and then honestly, the kidnapping was kind of pathetic because he literally, like, she didn't resist at all. He just basically got off the chariot, picked her up, got back on, and off they went. And she didn't even try to run. And, like, the mom's like, oh no. And I was like, if she wanted to get away, she could have done that. It was very obviously not that hard to kidnap her. And of course, in this version, they did change the original myth in which Persephone did not have any feelings for Hades to she does, and she does see the good in him and like him, and that's why she ultimately makes the choice for herself to stay, which again is not in the original myth, but this is a family show, so it makes sense that that's there. Again, I like that we got to see the underworld, we got to see the Elysian Fields, we got to see Tartarus, we got to see his abode. So overall, I thought that the concept was something new for the series that they haven't done before. I liked that it did take place in a different realm than the realm of the living, and I did like the entire concept of the series and how it was executed, but it wasn't perfect. Um, and that is why I decided to give it a 9. And that now brings us to the personal ranking list. And honestly, I'm still fully aligned with the mostly objective ranking list, except for like the first 2 episodes, which I have swapped. But otherwise, the list is identical. And this is the first series that's like really happened with so consistently. So I wonder how long it'll actually last for. But I do always, while I do the personal ranking second to the mostly objective, I honestly give the personal ranking score before I calculate the mostly objective score, just so that it's not influenced by the mostly objective ranking. This time, though, it just happens to be aligning really well. So, anyways, and first we have What's in a Name, followed by The King of Thieves, The Other Side, Under the Broken Sky, Outcast, The Mother of All Monsters, Siege at Naxos, and then All That Glitters in last place. And that brings us to the series ranking so far. Season 1, of course, is in first, as it's the only completed season so far. And in the mostly objective ranking, Season 2 has 56 out of 240. And Season 2 on the personal ranking has 57 out of 240, which is also super closely aligned. So with that, we have now rewatched and ranked Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Season 2, Episode 8, The Other Side. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.